Okay, welcome to this class for University Express this morning. Thank you for being here with us. My name is Katie Earle, and I'm the coordinator of the University Express program, and I work for the Erie County Department of Senior Services. We're all joined here today virtually with Michael Olear, who will be our instructor. But before we jump into his presentation, I just want to do a few housekeeping things so we're all on the same page and we all know how to participate. Got some new folks joining us this morning, so I want to make sure we all know what we're doing. All right, the first thing I want to let you know is this session is being recorded, and we will try to post it online at a later date. The second thing is what you've probably already realized by now is that you joined us without a video of yourself showing, and you're muted and can do nothing about that. It's not that you've done anything wrong or broken anything. It's just that we're in an anonymous participation mode today. So only Michael and I can know who's in here, see the list of attendees. So you're not the only one, I promise you that. It's just that we only know who's here. So what you're currently looking at on your screen is a picture that I've previously taken. It should and hopefully does resemble what your screen looks like and the features that you may have depending on which device you've joined us from today. But we're going to be communicating through our Q&A feature. So if you look at the top right of your screen of my picture, I have Q&A in a red circle. So when some of you joined, then the event window, this may have already popped up for you and may be right there on your right side. You may just have to click that little arrow or caret to expand it. And if you don't have it, that's all right. If you look at the bottom of your screen in my picture, in a red box, I have our control panel, which is what we all have. So you can wiggle your mouse around or touch or poke your screen, and that'll activate your control panel. So I'm just going to give us a second here. So for those who are new today, can find that. And once you pull that up, you can look at my picture, and I have a blue circle with a square with a question mark, and that's the Q&A panel button. You can click on that to bring your panel up, click on it to take it away. Now, if you don't see that button, you can click on the button that has 3 dots. That's going to give you more options to choose from. So you can then select Q&A. So I'm just going to wait a couple seconds here, so hopefully everyone can locate that. Okay, hopefully you've pulled it up. So again, if you look at my picture, I have a red arrow that's pointing down to ask all panelists. That's the default, and that's perfect. You can just leave that right alone. Your questions will come to both Michael and I. And then below that, we have the text box where you can click or poke and then type your question and press send. You have to press send or we're not going to get it. So again, we're in that anonymous participation mode, so only Michael and I will see your name associated with your question or comment. Otherwise, to everybody else, it's just going to look like a question or comment from nobody. So have fun, play around with this. We hope you participate and learn because we're really excited about it. And if you want to leave, just press that red X. It's in your control panel. If you accidentally leave and want to come join us again, just go back to that email that brought you in initially today, and you'll be right back here. Okay, so I want to thank the sponsors of our University Express program, which is my Department of Senior Services, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, Excelsior Orthopedics, and Wegmans, because they help make this program possible. If you need any help or have any questions about programs, services, benefits, or supports, please give Senior Services a call. We'll do whatever we can to help you out. Our phone number is 858-8526. Without further ado, I will introduce the star of our show to you today. Michael Olear is a licensed associate real estate broker with Olear team and MJ Peterson Real Estate. He has over 30 years experience and has specialized in helping older adults with transitions since 1999. Michael is a graduate of the University of Buffalo School of Management, CEL, and the University School of Social Work's Master's Program. His team includes 8 realtors and 4 paid staff working throughout Erie and Niagara counties, helping buyers and sellers of residential real estate with specialized services for older adults and their caregivers. Michael has served on a variety of boards throughout the community, including the Network on Aging, the Alzheimer's Association Board, the Ashford Hollow Foundation for Griffith Park, and the University of Buffalo School of Management, CEL Board, with 2 years as treasurer and 2 years as chair. His active pursuits include yoga, cycling, listening to live music, and attending fun events in the community when it's safe to do so. So I will stop sharing and I will turn it over to Michael. All right, Michael, you should be able to share your screen.
Yes, I'm good. So. All right, so Katie, is it okay on the screen?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, good. And thank you everybody for attending. So here's the title of the presentation for today. It's Condos, Townhouses, and Patio Homes. What we're going to go over is just hopefully out of today, you're going to become more up to speed in terms of what the definitions, the words used. A lot of times I think words are thrown around and maybe can have multiple meanings. So we're going to try to, eliminate some of the mystery about that. So that's what we're going to do today. So why am I here? This is my background. I have a master's degree in social work, and Katie went through a bit of a list there of things, over the past. And my website is right here at olear.com if you need any other information. So. All right, so what we're going to talk about today, what is a condo? And like I said, the terms are thrown around rather loosely. Condo isn't necessarily, it doesn't mean a particular type of building. What it actually means, it's a style of ownership. It can come in so many different forms. There's high-rise buildings, there's multiple apartments. At times there's units that are built that are side to side with nobody upstairs that are also condo. And condominium's a style of ownership. So that's what we're going to talk about first. So when you're buying a condo, what do you actually purchase? Well, you're purchasing a shared ownership in all the common elements. The common elements being we'll get into that in just a minute, the hallways, driveways, so forth. But you're buying your interior space. And the interior space would be everything that's within the skin of the walls. So by the skin of the walls, we're talking about that covering of drywall and paint. That is the part that's the innermost portion of the wall. And then everything within. That's what you're actually buying when you buy a condo. In terms of the common elements, you're also buying a portion of the hallways, driveways, um, roofing, recreational areas. Sometimes there's shared basements. You're buying a portion of that. You're also buying a portion of the land that it sits on. And so, in terms of determining what your portion is, when all the units are the same size, the portion typically is typical. But in the case of, say, if there's various size units, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedroom units, and I don't know how many people are familiar with, say, Oak Brook. Oak Brook is condominium development that's been there for quite some time. It was originally built as apartments, and now it's all condos. They have the whole gamut. There's townhouses there. There are 1 bedrooms. There's 2. There's 3 bedroom units. Some have garages. Some don't. They have recreation areas. That is actually one of the best examples I can think of something that's a condo that has all the different elements. And in terms of the interior space, generally speaking, the interior skin, everything that's in that, all the volume in the rooms, the fixtures that are on the wall or on the ceiling, as far as any of the finishes, the cabinets, the bathrooms, kitchens, all of that, the rugs, That is all what you're purchasing. And what about windows and doors? Windows and doors are typically the responsibility of the individual owner. So in the case of, but it also can be different. So I think one of the key things we're going to get to later in the presentation is that it's important for you to do a certain level of investigation before you buy something so you know exactly what you're getting into. It can vary depending on the association with respect to the windows and the doors. So this is something that is really good to know ahead of time before you purchase. And it's certainly something that the information should be readily available. What about water leaks from above? That's a scary thing sometimes for people. Water leaks from above are typically the responsibility most of the time of the association, unless there is something that was done by the person that's in the unit upstairs that actually caused the lease in terms of some kind of negligence. What can happen frequently is it can come down to both the insurance of the homeowners association and also the insurance of the individual where the leak came from can end up being responsible for um, satisfying any kind of claim that the person downstairs might have. Um, in some cases, you own the entire structure with the condo. If something's organized with a homeowners association with condominium status, you can actually be in a detached dwelling that is part of a homeowners association, but is also in the eyes of the state that you live in, it's also considered a condominium. So the whole gamut. And a lot of times the word gets thrown around so much in real estate that happens so often. The word colonial, you know, what does that mean? Or Cape Cod can be a lot of different things. It's the same thing here. So it's really important that you take the time to read about it and develop your understanding before you do anything. And the fact that you're here today tells me that you're someone that you probably plan ahead. You like to get your information before you make choices. And believe me, when it comes to real estate, that is the best way to proceed. It's typically, just as an aside, I tell most people if you're planning a move, especially if you're going from a larger place to a smaller one, typically you're far better off starting your planning process 6 to 12 months ahead, even a couple years ahead, just because of all the details and the complexity. It's a lot different than when you go from an apartment and buy your first home. That's a lot easier. So, then, so condo characteristics, different things that you could find if you bought into a condominium, a homeowners association. Mailboxes are typically at a central location. And if you've ever been to a development, you'll see that a lot of times people drive in and maybe there's a shelter where, you'll find all the mailboxes, that everyone has a key for their own. What about big packages? Big packages typically get left at an office or, for instance, my son was renting a condo in Cleveland for a while. And what they did there was they had a combination lock for if you receive large packages. And so you would be given the combination and a certain number of days to go retrieve it. And then once you get your package, you text or press the button or something, and then they know that you've picked it up and it's available for the next time someone else gets a package. So as technology's evolved, as Amazon and all the other companies, as deliveries have increased, housing circumstances have evolved as well to accommodate it. One other item where he lived, there was common laundry. I don't have that on my list I see here. But in the event of common laundry, there was actually um, where you pay, with coins and or pay not even with coins, but you just develop an account with credit. The way it was set up, the dryer would text you when it was done. I thought I was pretty impressed by that. But I think one of the things most people like when they're buying a condo, patio home, or townhouse is they like having the laundry in their own unit. And that's certainly something that's possible. It's just one of the keys we'll get into later is identifying up front, the things that are important to you. And we'll talk about that a little bit in a few minutes. So as far as when you buy a condo, you automatically are also acquiring a membership in a homeowners association. The homeowners association is typically governed by an elected board. The board is comprised of people that live at the community, and they are charged with sharing or following bylaws that are established by the condominium unit. The board also determines the budget for not only maintenance, but reserve. And we'll talk a little bit about reserve in a few minutes. And one of the really nice benefits in New York State, if it's organized as a condo homeowners association, there's lower assessment for taxation. And the reason why you're only assessed at a percentage of the total value, because the homeowners association is doing certain things, such as maintaining the road, or um, maybe garbage pickup is private, as opposed to the municipality providing the service. So that's why the lower assessment, results from that. There's actually uh, a development that has condo status that's in Clarence, New York, where they actually have a private sewer. So it's again, it's a higher degree of complexity, depending on the circumstance. But that particular association, they budget a certain amount every year in the event there's any difficulties at all with the sewer system. And also they pay to maintain it regularly, get it cleaned out, camera it and so forth to make sure that they don't have any difficulties. So condos with garages, this is something that's really, really important. If you're buying a condominium and it has a garage, be aware that it has a separate SBL number. SBL means section block lot number. So one of the biggest mistakes that real estate people make when they're listing a condo for sale, or when they're helping a buyer purchase a condo that has a garage, is there's some neglect in terms of including both SBL numbers. It's absolutely critical that when you're buying, that and you're expecting to get a garage for the price you're paying, that it has two SBL numbers in your contract. And then also at closing, you'll actually get deeds for two different parcels, because um, that's how it's recorded in terms of the title. If you're buying the condo and you're buying everything within the skin of the walls of the unit where you're going to live, but it also has a garage. Um, that garage also is a separate piece within the skin of certain walls, and in the case of the garage door, always you typically do own that, but that's really, really important to make sure it's in your contract. As far as monthly HOA, how does that all work? The HOA assessment amount is set by the board of directors, and that is a result of preparing a budget for the year. And many, many homeowners associations have professional management. I highly recommend professional management. It's just because if it's a volunteer organization. I know from belonging to a lot of volunteer organizations over the years, I mean, things just sometimes go by the wayside because, I mean, the person is not being paid. They're doing it to be helpful. So if your management is done by, um, a voluntary group of individuals, I think you can expect from time to time to not get the service maybe you truly need. And it's really more rare to have that, at least in Western New York. Property management typically is done by company, and there's several locally that are actually quite large and do a lot of different associations throughout, the Western New York community. One of the other aspects of your monthly HOA assessment that you pay, there's a portion of that goes for the master insurance. So master insurance would be liability insurance to cover, if somebody falls down the stairs, or say there's a fender bender at the mailbox, who's going to cover the cost. That typically goes, well, in the case of the cars, I think probably would be the individual. But if they ran into I don't know, something was wrong with the mailbox and it fell in your car, and in that case, it would be the master insurance. Wind damage, to the roof. Another aspect of the monthly HOA assessment, a portion of that is going to go to pay for common area maintenance. So that would be grass cutting, snow plowing, trimming landscaping, mulching. It's a rather large undertaking to manage the budget of an HOA. So it's really important, I think, that when you're voting for people, it's not a popularity contest, and actually vote for people that are qualified. It makes a big difference. So a portion of the monthly HOA also needs to go for the reserve account. And the reserve account is the place where money is kept in the event something large needs to be replaced, whether that would be a roof, a driveway. If the association takes care of the windows, maybe that's something that would need to be, replaced after a period of time. So, I mean, the best way for an association to run is to actually take the cost of roofing for every roof in the whole place, divide it by 20, because that's how long roofs last. And then that's the amount, 1/20th of the complete replacement cost should be going into the reserve account every year. So you break it down by 20 years and 12 months. So whatever that amount is, that should be getting put away every year. So you do that for all the major components of the development. If there's a pool, or if there's some places have guest bedrooms, some places have gathering places, all of that needs to be maintained. So what's typical in terms of a cost? I mean, I think you'll find anywhere from, on the lower end, maybe about 235 a month, all the way up to, I'd say on average, maybe around 300. A little bit, excuse me, a little bit higher. I just listed a condo in Orchard Park actually yesterday, and the monthly HOA there is 305. So that's kind of your average range. And so what's really high? There's a place on Main Street in Williamsville. The HOA there, I think, is about 700 a month for the. They're in four figures, and the difference is that it's a secure building. Secure building. There's a doorman that's on duty 24/7. So you got all those salaries to cover too. So that's could be quite a variety, a mixed bag out there. I need a drink of water. Okay, so I got ahead of myself a little bit. We talked about reserve account. Um, we talked about funds putting away each month. And then what happens if there's no money to replace something major? Quick story. There was a development in Williamsville, and for many, many years, the realtors were always say, well, it's a great spot to buy because the association fee is so low. I think at the time, maybe the average was somewhere around 200 a month, and this place was like 70, $80 a month, and, it was a big selling point. It's got a really low association. It's cheap to live there. It's inexpensive is a much better word for realtors to use. Um, but in terms of what happened there was all of a sudden everything came due. Roofing, um, siding, driveway, so many things. So what happens then? Well, there's a thing called special assessments. So in the case of that place, people were paying um, hundreds of dollars per month extra, 300, 400 a month for like 3 to 4 years to cover that. And it actually depressed the value of those units considerably once that dynamic started to happen. So special assessments are never popular, and yeah, you have to have a board of directors that's willing to make difficult decisions and willing to not be not be reelected, if they're acting in the common good. And really, the better thing for an association to do is to increase the amount of the budget, by a small amount every year, so that you're at least um, keeping up with inflation. I think at the same time, they need to be planning for replacement of major items. So special assessment is typically a response to surprises. That is exactly what it is. There was a major surprise in the town of Amherst, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I think there was a development, an apartment building, I believe, where an exterior porch collapsed and somebody got hurt. So what the town did was they launched an inspection of every multifamily that had exterior porches and enforced the current code, which was more stringent than maybe what the code was when the building was first built, even though maybe the porches that were there were structurally perfect and no issues and no potential for issues. So what resulted was all of these, every place had to redo something, most of them. And a lot of the condos, HOAs that had exterior porches, people had special assessments for a few years as a result. And it was certainly not the fault of those running on the board. So before you buy, what should you do? Or how are you protected? There's two contractual mechanisms that are in the standard contract in Western New York. The first is there's a 10-day delivery period for documents. So what that means is that anything relevant to the um, condominium, home, townhouse needs to be given to the buyer or their attorney within a 10-day period after you purchase. And then you get a 21-day review period to examine those documents. So that's where you get to look things over. A lot of times you don't get to look things over ahead of time. A really good uh, procedure for someone who's selling, whether they're selling by themselves or if they're using a realtor, is to make a summary document of what all the rules are of the association. What are the pertinent rules? And then post that with your um, wherever you're listing the house. It's important for people to know this stuff ahead of time so they're not wasting your time or their time. What are the key documents? You need to look over board minutes. I would say you want to look at board minutes, going back through the last budget, just so you know where things are at. If you read the minutes, you know what's happening with the association, you know what's coming down the pike. The HOA rule book, the financial statements, maybe have your lawyer look at those. The offering plan is about that thick. You're probably not going to read it, but that's you can if you want. One of the key things to do is look through the board minutes, because if say you're going to buy unit 6F, and then you look through the minutes and you see over the last maybe it goes back 3 months before, 4 months before, and it says another complaint from, I'll say John Smith from Unit 6F about the people upstairs making too much noise. Really good if you know that ahead of time. So that kind of stuff will pop up in the minutes. And that's where I think you can make some judgments in terms of, if it's a place you want to buy or not. As far as insurance, the insurance agent will direct you to the right product. It's different than homeowners association. It usually costs less because they're not covering the exterior, but they'll cover the items in your unit only. But also, it will cover any liability you might have for guests who are at the property. So we touched on the reduced property taxes. I kind of explained that already, but just a quick summary. The because the HOA is paying for different things the town does not have to do, taxes will be reduced. All right, so what is a townhouse? A townhouse is a specific building style. And one of the elements that'll help you understand that is there are common sidewalls. So a townhouse can be a 1-story, 2-story, 3-story. Sometimes it has a basement, garage, attached or detached. But one of the things about townhouses is they're always like right next to each other. There's a development in Amherst called Wedgwood, or there's one in Orchard Park called Stepping Stone, where they're townhouses because they're distinct. They don't have anybody above. And The 2-story townhouses are side by side, so they have common roofing, common basement, but the units themselves are separate. Oh, pardon me, the basements are separate as well. It's just they're all joined as one unit. That's what I meant by that. So with a townhouse, what are you buying? A lot of times it's a little bit different. You're still going to buy the entire structure inside the walls, everything within the scan of the walls. The thing that's different, a lot of times you're going to buy the land that it actually sits on. And sometimes it includes some land behind, on the side, in front. Quite often as well, it'll include a deck, patio, front porch, those kind of items that make it feel more like a house. You also, purchasing, or I should say, eligible, or you're now officially a member of the homeowners association as well. Patio home. What's the difference with a patio home? A patio home is it's essentially a normal subdivision, that we always are familiar with, where it's lot lines and just one structure on every lot. The difference with patio homes is that they have reduced setbacks and increased density. So what do I mean by that? A setback is the rules that are supplied by the local municipality with respect to how far from the property line you're going to put your structure, and then also how far from the road, how big does the backyard have to be, how many feet from the rear property line. That's what setbacks are. So what developers have been able to do is get towns to approve where you can have a reduced setback. Um, the other thing is the increased density. Usually and maybe you'll see like developers fighting in court with, neighbors about can we put a development here or not? And quite often the big issue is the density. Density means like how many individual units, how many houses are going to be built in just, in this acreage. And each town has a set figure that they typically work with. But with patio home, there's always negotiation over how many. Of course, the developer wants to pack in as many as possible, and the people that live in the adjoining area, because it's going to impact the traffic pattern, it's going to affect water pressure, sewers, and other services to have these more people here, more structures. So that's why there's always negotiation over this. HOA frequently with patio homes to take care of at least grass cutting, and also an HOA sometimes, and it's much more rare that there's an HOA for reduced taxation. So with a patio home, you're buying the entire structure. You're buying land around the house, and usually it's much more than what you're buying with a townhouse. It's still a small lot, but it's much smaller space. But you are still buying typically more than you would buy with a townhouse. And again, membership in the homeowners association. So this is a different type of shared ownership. It's a planned unit development. So planned unit development, there aren't too many of these in Western New York. The ones that might be the most common are the largest. There's two in Amherst. One is called Ransom Oaks. The other one is Audubon. And they're both really pretty big. Um, Planned unit development, my sister lives in Georgia, and it's so much more common there. I think almost every subdivision in her area of the county has a planned unit development. It includes single family, condos, townhouses. There's shared common areas, shared amenities, clubhouse, pool, tennis courts, and there's an HOA with board. So it's a lot like owning a single family house, but it's also a lot more like owning a condo or a townhouse. With planned unit development, typically you do have to do your own landscaping, grass cutting, snow plowing. You also find there's rules you have to conform with. Like for instance, the two places that I mentioned, there's no you can't put any pools in, or you can't put any fences. That's pretty typical of what you would find. So as far as right sizing and moving, I know maybe some people are thinking about that. And the key question is, how do you eat an elephant? So I know if I was in the room right now, somebody would say one bite at a time or a little bit at a time. And that really is the way to do this. That's why when I was starting this, I said 6, 12 months, 24-month process to, begin going through the different details. Um, my wife and I we just right sized a little last year, and it took us about 4 years or 5 years because weren't completely ready to leave where we were. So it depends on yourself. Main thing is that to live somewhere and live there safely, and living somewhere that actually matches your needs, I think makes the most sense. So you reduce the amount of stress when you're doing this by utilizing a very orderly process. And your process will get more orderly if you understand the four phases. These are the four things that need to be addressed. Personal property. It's also good to have a money plan and an idea of what the replacement residence is going to look like. Will you be selling as is, or are you going to fix up a little bit? And then who do you need to hire to help you? These are kind of the main questions I really think that need to be addressed in order to move on in your process. As far as personal property, what I suggest a lot of times, a way to manage it fairly easily is go room by room with a list, and make 3 columns. What am I going to keep, give away, sell, or I don't know? Yeah, I'm sorry, 4 columns. Take 15 minutes someday and go through your house and do that. You'll be surprised the clarity that it'll give you if you take the time. You can even, if you want to clear things out and reduce accumulation, it's good to find distinct locations in the house where you can pile up things you want to give away, maybe have another pile somewhere of things you want to sell. It's good to kind of thin out rooms. It gives you a sense of accomplishment and helps you, maintain the positive inertia, that's really needed to, make this kind of change. Also, it's an ideal time to talk to family and friends who might be interested in taking some things. So as far as the financial plan, it's critical to discuss this with a key advisor, whether that would be an elder law attorney, financial planner. Senior Services has amazing caseworkers, both at the downtown location or also at the different community centers. There's no cost to you. And it's a great place to, in confidence, talk to someone about plans you might have, and just get, an opinion from someone who's got absolutely nothing to gain. I think is the ideal person to talk to, like someone that's knowledgeable, but also at the same time would, clearly have your best interest at heart. Fix or sell as is. That's me working on my house. That's what it feels like at times. So it's important to impediments to financing, like understanding what those are. If a roof is curling, missing shingles, it's really problematic when you're selling. If your main electrical cable coming into the house has the casing ripped off and there you can see actually the interior wire. I mean, things like that, it typically makes sense to replace. And but the bottom line is you can sell as is. And one other thing, the one thing that the guy that trained me used to always say, price cures all objections. So one of the things that a really good realtor will be able to help you discern will be, okay, if I spend X amount on this, this, and this, how much money will I get back? And if you're not in the positive return area, a lot of times it doesn't make sense to do something. So it's just important to take a hard look at that so you understand it. And then as far as simple staging, you get so much money extra by just doing simple things, reducing the amount of accumulation. Just to give you an example, like an end table should have a lamp and one other item. That's it. You need to take down personal photos. You need to depersonalize, just so people can visualize themselves and their possessions in your space. So who's out there to help me out? I love all the things you're saying, but this is too much work for me. Well, there's folks you can hire, senior move manager. There's a whole industry that's grown up around helping older adults. Um, Aging life care specialist is someone who's at a higher medical social work level that can actually advise you in terms of, what matches your functioning level, what kind of moves make sense, and especially helpful if there's a couple, like two people, partners that where one maybe is healthier than the other one, and trying to figure out where you can go so you'll still be together. Uh, aging life care specialist is indispensable in that situation, I think. So a realtor can help you in terms of, determining the value of the house, any kind of preparation you might need, or that would be really cost effective for you. Um, Household sale professionals, handy workers, um, folks like that are really good to know. Right? That's pretty much it. So I do this seminar for other groups. Feel free to call or email, and that's my phone number. Again, it's Michael Olear. And thanks for attending. Now I'll take a look and see if there's any questions.
Michael, just quickly, we have a couple people who called in, so if you just want to give the phone number and the email
sure.
address.
Okay. Yeah, the phone number, I'll actually give my cell phone. Well, office number is 716-880-4442. And the email address is info, that's INFO, at Olear, OLEAR.com. So again, 880-4442.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right. People, feel free to get your questions and comments in. Michael, we can, if you want to take away your presentation, that'll bring our videos big for everybody if you want to do that.
There we go.
Perfect. All right, let's see if we have any questions. I mean, that was super thorough. I'm just so appreciative for your knowledge. You have to keep
I
a lot of
enjoyed
things
doing it.
straight.
Thank you.
Well, people on, maybe folks are typing in. I guess I can ask a question quickly. I know we were talking about how the housing market in general is pretty hot right now. Are you seeing the same thing for these types of dwellings going pretty quickly?
Yeah, I would say, if anything, one of the things that's happened because, well, the housing market right now, you've probably seen it in the paper, there's not enough supply. You know, I was telling Kate before the meeting, we're getting, like, when we list a house, we're getting 40 showings on a weekend, 30. I mean, that many people coming. And there's also, we've developed some ways to sell your house safely without people coming in by using virtual techniques. And it actually works really well, and people will still buy. We've also, I have a house a ranch in West Seneca is actually listing today. I know the staff was working on it. The folks that are selling it are actually gonna leave for several days. And, you know, we're gonna have it sold before they come back. So, I mean, that's the nature of the market right now. And does that carry over to condos and townhouses? And I would tell you an emphatic yes. So one of the things that we've seen that's happened is with COVID-19, people are less reluctant to work, you know, to move into communities and to go from selling their house to something that's more manageable. That's caused the demand for condos to rise. So the answer is yes. I don't think it corresponds as fully as single family homes, but it definitely has caused the condo market to ramp up a bit.
Interesting. Thank you for that information. Just looking to see. If you can't find your Q&A panel, it should be down at your control panel. You should be able to pull that up like we reviewed in the beginning. But I mean, if there's no questions, we're just appreciative for Michael for his time, for all of you being here. He gave his contact information. If you want to reach out to him or reach out to me, us at Senior Services, we're happy to provide you with referrals or information just to help you reach your goals. So thank you, everybody, for being on today.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming.